All right, we're live. We're back. Hello, everybody. My name is Sunny Ray. This is the Sunny Ray Show. Today, I'm joined by Taylor Sanford. He's calling in from Utah. How's it going, Taylor?
Pretty good. How are you, Sonny?
I am well. I'm excited about this conversation. I was doing a bunch of research this morning on you. You've got quite an interesting story. But maybe before we go into any of that, kick us off and tell us a little bit about what you're building. Maybe just the company and a couple lines on it, and then excited about just talking about your backstory, like where you're from and all of that.
Yeah. So real quick, kind of a synopsis of Premier Spike is, I'm a guy. I love to play games. I fell in love with the game of Spikeball, but after becoming one of their biggest ambassadors, I decided to do something else and to start challenging them. So become the first legitimate challenger to Spikeball.
First legitimate challenger to Spikeball. That sounds super interesting and fascinating. But let's come back to that. So Taylor, you mentioned that high school hockey had a major impact on your life. By the way, I played a little bit of it when I was a kid as well. And you also you mentioned that you wanted to give back to the sport ever since. So take us back to those early years. How has hockey shaped who you are today?
Yeah, I've played hockey for 25 years now. And it's one of those things that didn't necessarily have any impact directly on Premier Spike or the sport of Roundnet or Spikeball as people know it as. But I'm a big believer in team sports in general, right? And the competitiveness and the passion and the team spirit. One of the things that it did have a big effect on is this community. So, to give your viewers a very brief background of why I call it Roundnet. So, Roundnet is the generic name of the game. So, it's like Frisbee and flying disc, right? Everyone calls it Frisbee. Frisbee is a trademark brand. It's the same thing. Roundnet people call Spikeball, but I'm going to call it Roundnet because Spikeball is one, my competitor, two, a trademark brand. So in 2018, I love to play, and I created this Roundnet community here in Utah just for me to play with. And really, that's where kind of the background in sports and the team spirit and atmosphere and that all comes from was this drive to create the best and biggest Roundnet community in the world, which we did. Um, and that really is, for a niche sport like Roundnet, the community really is why people join, why people stick around. People might come and play in one tournament, but they come back because of the people that they meet and lifelong friends that have been made through this little sports community.
Fascinating. And before Roundnet, you were a College Works painting intern. So, that's essentially like running a house painting business as a college student. What did that experience teach you about entrepreneurship and what kind of lessons do you still carry today?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been an entrepreneur. I mean, the first thing I ever did was I was 11 years old, and me and my best friend, who was my neighbor, um, we ran a little mini sports camp for all the other kids in the neighborhood. Charged $3.50 for the whole week of basically, babysitting for the parents. So, um, I've always had this entrepreneur spirit. Mowed lawns through high school, but yeah, College Works painting was actually a really good experience of how to run a legitimate business. Right? We did hiring, we did the planning, we did the sales, the marketing. Um, as college students, we were in charge of all of that and balancing the books on top of being a contractor and managing a house painting business. So super valuable insight from doing that for sure.
Yeah, and you've also said that that experience taught you a lot, and you knew you couldn't just follow the typical like sales path, right? So you figured that if you could run a painting business at 20 with no experience, you could build something that you loved. So when did that realization crystallize for you? And yeah, did you realize that you were going to be a lifelong entrepreneur?
I think I did. I've always been had something in my back pocket. Premier Spike is the first legitimate, like, I mean, okay, this is a real business, not just a side hobby. Running Utah Roundnet, that which I've that's the one I've done since 2018, and hosted over 200 tournaments, and really throughout the Western United States as well. That kind of honestly happened on accident in a way. Like I knew what I was doing, but I didn't really expect that to turn into what it has. And so, just uh, the knowledge, that passion that, hey, I'm going to find something I love to do, is really what that early entrepreneur experience gave me, was that confidence to be like, okay, we just need to find what I'm passionate about, which is sports, games, and wait for the right time.
Very cool. And then I think by 2021, you took the leap and quit your job to essentially do this full time. So you mentioned also that one of your proudest accomplishments is that your workday now consists of hanging out with friends and parks on Saturdays. What gave you the confidence to make that jump?
Ironically enough, it was well, we had a really good boost in COVID. We're an outdoor sport. We were able to still get permits after a few months, and people couldn't do other things. And so, we were hosting tournaments, just local tournaments that, had over 100 teams come out to play, and eventually end up drawing people from across the country to come here and play with them. And so really having that community it gave me the confidence. Not only what were people coming out to my tournaments, they were asking me for advice, and essentially I would consult with them on how they could follow the path that I had done to build up this little grassroots community of Roundnet players. And so I worked with dozens of people throughout the world, long before even doing anything with Premier Spike. I was able to foster those relationships.
Super cool, man. And then you were also one of the most experienced tournament directors in the sport, right? And you've described throwing away bin after bin of broken plastic rims after every event. So walk us through that moment where you thought, I need to build something better for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, so I am the most experienced Roundnet tournament director. Hosted over 200. But yeah, I mean, again, I alluded this at the very beginning, right? I mean, for 4 years, I was one of Spikeball's biggest ambassadors. As someone, right? I mean, not just growing my own community, but helping other people do it throughout the world as well. And but realize that people are traveling the country, people are traveling the world. The first World Championships were supposed to be in 2020, ended up being in 2022. But I mean, people are traveling the world to play. And before Premier Spike came along, it was essentially it was just like a backyard game. Even their pro set would twist and turn and bend and break. And again, you've got people paying a lot of money to travel, and they want a fair experience. And that was what we built with Premier Spike. On top of that, but yes, the quality is also great. I've got a picture of my daughter holding like four Premier Spike rims that broke the first year that we used Premier Spike, and then just two bins of broken yellow rims from the other brand, to compare what happened the year before. And so yeah, it's been amazing, and we've been able to really evolve and elevate the sport of Roundnet.
And then in 2022, I think it was, you met Adam, right? Is he your co-founder, or he's a fellow
Yep,
player and engineer? And
both. Yep.
you guys spent 2022 prototyping and testing design. So what was that year like? How many ideas did you go through before you
Yeah.
landed on something that worked?
Yeah, I had drawn something out on paper, but I didn't have any experience in manufacturing, distribution, even. And he had worked on some other things for some school projects. You're writing with what he called a net stabilizer for a Spikeball Pro net. And so I approached him and said, hey, do you want to help me bring this to life? And um, so he did. But yeah, we kind of tested in secret, right? We didn't want it to get out. I had this perfect community, here in Utah that could test. Right, these had become my best friends. Also, just the perfect demographic and people that I could trust to give me truthful insight and not just be a yes man for me. But yeah, we went through a whole bunch of different ways. The biggest issue was trying to figure out how to get the legs to snap into the rims, because we knew the key to the design was to not have any bending points that would allow the net to flex. And so to do that, we had to get the legs to snap to the bottom of the rims, have them pop out when they needed to, but not if they didn't. And so Adam came up with a brilliant option that we ended up figuring out was really well. But we tried magnets, we tried all sorts of things that we thought, oh, this might work, and just didn't. But it was a fun year for sure.
That's super cool. And you guys were essentially 3D printing all these prototypes, or yeah.
Yeah. So he had, at first he just had like a little 12-inch 3D printer. And I didn't realize all the work it took until he actually showed up with our first one. And I mean, he's printing out these little segments and then putting them around, a PVC pipe, screwing them together. It was wild, all the work that it took to do it on a small 3D printer. Once we got the design down, we invested in 4 large format ones so that we could print out more legit prototypes, which is what we sent all over the world to influential players. But yeah, that's how it started.
So for maybe just for someone new to this idea of Roundnet, how would you describe Premier Spike and what makes it fundamentally different from what's already out there?
Yeah. So Roundnet was originally invented in 1989 by a guy named Jeff Knurrick, and he was just a toy inventor, and came out with the original Spikeball, and he called it Spikeball back then. Not associated with the Spikeball company today, though. And so, but the best description of it is it's a combination of volleyball and foursquare. Each team gets up to 3 alternating hits, but instead of hitting it over the net, like a bump set spike over the net, it's a bump set spike on the net, and then that's what changes possession. And then the other big difference is that there are no sides or boundaries, so 360 degrees. So it gets a lot of hype. People just run around the net. Some of the plays where you're just dying out of breath by the end of the rally because you're just going crazy trying to get each ball every time. So yeah, builds a lot of fun and camaraderie.
So you guys have hit over $500,000 in sales, and you've done it entirely through grassroots marketing and word of mouth. So can you talk about that in a world where everyone throws money at ads? How did you pull that off?
Yeah, it's been something I've been really proud of. And we've tried to run ads a few times early on, and for a multitude of reasons, they didn't work out. The main one being we didn't have the brand recognition. When we're going up a name like Spikeball, which is right, again, people, that's what they know the game as. And when we're coming out with a premium version of a set, we can post an ad about it and people are like, oh, okay, cool. It's another Spikeball knockoff. And then they go to our website and it's more expensive. We were just throwing away money. But because of the trust that I had built with these community leaders worldwide, again, before I even had any, selfish interest in building a relationship with these people, I was doing that for years. And so when we launched, we were able to do $50,000 in pre-sales. Again, no ad spend, just directly on our website, no Indiegogo, Kickstarter, any of that. And most of them didn't even have a prototype in hand, or hadn't even seen one. And so a lot of it was just based on the relationships that I had and the trust that people had in me as this influential person in this niche sport. And then when we came out with our product and it was clearly superior, um, then the product can speak for itself. But that's how we're able to get off the ground and build these partnerships with other people like me who were throwing tournaments. And so when a tournament host uses our equipment, all those players want to use their equipment as well. And so that was really kind of the basis of our marketing approach and our launch was to go after these influential people, but more not as like influencers and paying influencers, but just building relationship and gaining trust for them to then believe and trust in our product and brand.
And beyond just equipment, you've built essentially an entire ecosystem. The Utah Roundnet Association, the first high school Roundnet league in the world, the Utah Select Spike Club for competitive youth players. Why has growing the community been just as important as growing the company?
Well, like I say, I mean, if it wasn't for me building up this Utah Roundnet community, right? I mean, a totally separate entity. But that is what gave me the influence in this sport, and then worked with other people to do the same. And if I hadn't done that, then our go-to-market strategy would have been just like anybody else, and we probably would have gotten crushed. Again, you can't just buy your way out of every problem, and so it really was building these relationships with these communities. And even today, right? I mean, we've gotten the bid for the 2026 Roundnet World Championships, which was a huge honor. But it's because of the relationship with the communities everywhere, and then the trust that the players and the community leaders have, which enabled us to even be in the conversation when it came to having a sponsorship for the World Championships.
Taylor, maybe help me land this plane. So where, if you zoom out maybe 5 or 10 years and you see Roundnet, as a sport, where does Premier Spike fit in? And then do you also think that this is something that might make its way to the Olympics?
So that's been a discussion for, well, I mean, ever since I got into the sport 8 years ago. So the eventual goal is the Olympics. I believe you need like 42, maybe 44 national governing bodies. I believe Roundnet right now has 32 that are official with the International Roundnet Federation, and then some others that are provisionary. So, it's on its way. Obviously, that's not the only requirement, but that is the goal. And the big thing is accessibility. I mean, we're working with, won't go into the details, but we've got a little grassroots, distribution strategy as well. Working with little distribution partners everywhere, because I mean, it gives me a ton of pride when I see something that I created being played all over the world. I remember the first time on social media, I saw a clip from Roundnet Egypt playing on our set. I'm like, holy cow! Like we're in Egypt and we don't ship I mean, it was like somebody had to pay a lot of money to ship it there, and so I think that's the biggest thing is just this continual growth. I'm not trying to do anything quick rich or get any quick wins. We've found a lot of success in just good patience, sustainable, organic growth. And that's what I want to continue doing.
Awesome, Taylor. That was very inspirational, and I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Maybe hang out for 1 minute. I'll bring this live stream to a close. Thank you all for tuning in, and until next time.